Most people think a medical emergency happens to someone else until it happens to them. And in that moment, the questions become who has your information? Who knows your medications? Who knows your conditions? Who can speak for you if you can't? Today, we're going to talk about emergency preparation and why having the right information available at the right time can change everything. Today, we're diving into a topic that affects every single person listening: emergency preparation. Because no matter how healthy, how careful, or prepared we think we are, life can change in 1 second. My guest today is Michele Bolton. She's the founder and CEO of a healthcare technology company focused on improving emergency medical communications between patients, first responders, and healthcare professionals. Michele's work has inspired her own personal health challenges and her passion for helping others. And because this everything that's happened in her life, she's become more empowered, prepared, and she's also protected in her healthcare journey. Now, Michele, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you on, and I'm so proud of what you've done.
Stacey, thank you so much. I'm excited to be with you today and really appreciate it. So thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm just so excited. I just want to you dive right into it and just begin. So I want to ask you, why are so many people unprepared for a medical emergency?
I think it's for a couple of reasons. I think because, like you mentioned in the intro, they don't think it will happen to them.
Hmm.
It's never a priority typically for people until the last minute
Yeah.
because life gets busy, right? Everyone's lives are very busy and oh, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. I think it's
Yeah.
similar to people are afraid to do their wills, right? Because they
Yeah.
think they'll pass away after doing it. So I think there's a little bit I think it's psychology. And I think the greater part of that is, you can help yourself, but you can help others help you
Exactly.
if you are prepared in advance. And, if we can relate it and compare it to getting, health insurance outside or, your house insurance, your car insurance, those types of things, you pray you never need them,
Exactly.
but you kind of do need them. Now, those are obviously legal reasons, but I think with something like this in emergency preparedness, it's really important because you're safeguarding your own life,
Oh
your
yeah.
own health.
Hmm.
So, right, when you don't have your health, you have nothing.
Exactly. Why do most people assume it will happen in an emergency that it may not actually happen?
I think because we I think because we are always so in control of our bodies. It's not something you look for, it's not something you expect, but that's why they're called emergencies. They are unexpected, they're not planned events.
Yeah.
And we can't, there's so many instances where we see now with illness on the cruise ships or wildfires that are taking
Mhm.
place out there. Can you remember everything you need to bring with you
Right.
if you have to evacuate?
Exactly.
I mean, I'm all set because I just bring my wallet card with me and it's everything is on there that I might need. And if I have to relocate
Uh,
temporarily or even permanently, I have that information with me. I can go to the local pharmacy and just say, this is what I'm currently taking, but I don't have it because I had to evacuate. Can you please do a refill? They can contact my doctor and they can get that reauthorized consent. So I think it's because people just they don't look for it.
yeah.
And it's just another job for them to think that they have to do on top of living their life. So, I don't know, I think that's just my personal opinion. It could be
Yeah.
different, obviously, for other people.
I you know, I think people always they never think it's gonna happen. Like, they think,
Yeah.
"I'm gonna live a long life, and I'm gonna, do this at when in my 50s, I'm gonna do this in my 60s, and, in my 70s, I'd like to do this," and people don't really realize that we don't know what the future has in store for us. We don't Only thing we know is our present tense, right now, what's going on in our life, but we don't even know what could happen tomorrow. And I think
Yeah.
people have to realize that, we have no control of our future, and we don't have control of ourselves, and as much as we want to be in control, we are not in control. So anything is possible. Anything could happen to us health wise. We don't have control over that. So in your sense, like, why is it so important that people think about this before something actually goes wrong?
I think the greatest reason for doing it in advance is because there is tremendous stress and anxiety in emergency events,
Mhm.
and you will not remember, you may not remember what's really critical to you or what's really important for you to
Mhm.
share,
Right.
or to give those medical professionals at the time,
Yeah.
because your mind might be all over the place, and and you may not have family with you
Yeah.
who could speak for you, even in a temporary fashion, to
Mhm.
provide and fill in some of the blanks for you. Maybe they can't
Yeah.
fill them all in, but to even fill some in about your history, or you know if there are severe allergies at the time that you aren't able to communicate, they can help you a little bit that way, but generally speaking, I think it's just really important so that you don't have the frustration and the anxiety around will they prescribe something to me that I will react to because I'm taking this other medication and they don't know that.
Yes.
There's adverse effects, right?
Mhm.
And spin-off effects from not having enough information or accurate information.
Exactly.
But I think people that you don't tend to think about those things at the
Yeah.
time. So it's the emotional stress and anxiety around all of that. Yeah.
I have a 93-year-old grandmother and our family members, one of our family members wrote down all her medications and everything that she needs to, be able to tell, an emergency, person that might come to the house and if God forbid something happens. But what happens if she's in a place where she can't remember or she's confused or she's foggy or or she's unable to communicate verbally, what's gonna happen, 'Cause at 93, she has, like, a long list of different meds she has to take, but, we don't always know, just by keeping a list, if that list is gonna be valuable, if it's in her pocketbook and she can't verbally express, "It's in my pocketbook," or it's on my, on my refrigerator, people might miss that.
Yeah, you make a great point too. I was heading out on a flight and I was in Detroit Airport, and that exact situation came up. A gentleman was sitting beside me, or ready to board the plane, and his wife came over to him and said, "Did you bring this medication?" And she was really upset with him, and I think he felt bad, and he's like, "No, I forgot it."
Yeah.
But I forgot it in the fridge in the
Mhm.
hotel room
Right.
because he had everything else, but he forgot because it was had to be refrigerated. And
Yeah.
he pulls out this long list. Like it was an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with all of his conditions and medications he was taking. And he said, "This is what I do." And I'm like, "Oh," I was just surprised. Right? So I
Yeah.
took out my wallet card and I said, "This will solve that problem." His wife was like, "What is that?" And I told her, I said, "This is the solution that I created for myself because of my own situation."
Right.
So, because they were gonna have to go when they got to Miami, they were gonna have to go to the pharmacy and try to figure out which one was missing.
Right.
But I thought to myself at the same time, what if that piece of paper is lost and coffee spilled all over it? Or as you get older, your handwriting may not be as clear.
Right.
So, who's keeping that information up to date and legible for
Exactly.
you so that, so if you have a solution like this, then you can share it with everyone to let them know. Then it keeps things a little more organized,
Yeah.
and then you have the ability to update it anywhere you are as things change. Your healthcare situation does change over time, as we all
Right.
know. So you have the ability to just update it pretty quickly, and
I
yeah.
love that. And your company was inspired by personal health challenges and a desire to empower patients. Can you share what happened in your life that made this mission so personal for you?
Yeah, absolutely. It started when I was 23 years old.
Mm.
I'd had my daughter at 21, and I thought I'd like to get pregnant and have another baby. I came from a large family, so I
Yeah.
didn't feel like I was done. So at 23, I'm trying to get pregnant, and I wasn't obviously getting anywhere, and I
Mhm.
just got really uncomfortable one night, and I said to my husband at the time, "I have to go to the doctor. I can't sit. I can't get comfortable sitting, standing, or just walking around." It was very uncomfortable. So I went to the emergency department, and the clinic was closed, so I couldn't go there. But the doctor in Emerge said he did an internal and said, "Your right ovary is the size of a grapefruit, Michelle." He said, You're going to be in the OR within 2 hours because if it bursts, it could kill you." And of course, I go into shock. It's one of those moments you don't expect. You don't even know how you're going to react. And everybody, like my mom, was really upset, and I was just distraught. I could completely distraught. And so they went and did the partial hysterectomy. And then a couple years later, I thought, okay, I'll try to get pregnant again. Stubborn, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, I'm back with a gynecologist and a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And he sent me and my husband down to the cafeteria for a coffee and just said, "You better go figure out if you'd like any more children because you have endometriosis." And he said, "I've never seen such a severe case, Michelle. I don't even know how you got pregnant the first time." He said, "Your daughter is a miracle baby." So we just kind of sat there, speechless, of course,
Yeah.
and I booked the hysterectomy. So I had to have that done. And a month out of hospital, my father had a severe heart attack and passed away. He was in his 54th year. Yeah, very traumatic for the whole family. No one expected
Yeah.
that. 54 is so young. And it was just really difficult because it was a shock to everybody. My mom found
Yeah.
him first thing in the morning. And so we get through that. And then, a few years later, I'm back in the hospital. I'm like, I'm so much pain. I can't even drink water. So in I go again. They took out my gallbladder. So the gallbladder comes out. I'm like, okay, I don't have a whole lot going on in here left. So they get through that. And then I get back to living my life and working. And when I'm 30,
Mhm.
I thought I better go back to the doctor. I can't even climb a flight of stairs without being winded.
Yeah.
And I'd worked out so much, Stacey. I did a lot of working out at the time. So I shouldn't have had that situation. So I was just chalking it up to a really bad cold or bronchitis.
Right.
And I got to the clinic and he said, "Actually, Michelle, you have a heart murmur and we'd like to do a chest x ray." So I said, "Okay." So 15 minutes later, he came back and said, "The three of us feel you may have Hodgkin's disease." And I sat there and I'm like, "What is that? Like, what's that?" I honestly didn't know. And he said,
Yeah.
"Cancer." And I just looked at him. I'm like, "Cancer?" Like it was so bizarre. When you think you're going in for antibiotics and you're getting diagnosed like this. He said, "I want to show you something." So he took me to the x-ray room and I just looked at the wall and
Mhm.
pointed at it. And I'm like, "What is that?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Michelle, that's a tumor." He said, "We should be able to see your heart, your lungs,
Mhm.
your organs." He said, "We can't see anything." And it was just this massive cloud of white. And this tumor was over 3 inches thick in my chest cavity. So it was massive. And I'm sat there and I just start crying because I'm like, no wonder I couldn't breathe. Antibiotics aren't going to get rid of this.
Yeah.
He referred me to a thoracic surgeon and I went to see him. And I sat there and he came in the room and he just looked at me and he said, "We have to do open heart surgery."
Wow.
So I thought, here we go again. I said, "Okay." And I'm 30 and I'm a girl. So I'm like, okay, great. Here we go. I'm going to have a big
Oh,
scar
yeah.
on my chest. And he just looked at me really bizarre. He just like, "Michelle, I don't think you understand." He said, "I don't know if I can save you." And I just broke down because I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And he said, "This is a teratoma. And this tumor started when you were conceived in your mother's womb. And I've never seen one this large before."
Wow.
And he said, "We have to do open heart surgery to get it out. It is so large. And when we get in there, if I snip the wrong thing, that could kill you." So then his next step was basically asking permission to videotape the surgery and send pieces all over the world for decalcification naturally. I obviously said yes because what was I going to do at the time? And
Yeah.
basically read the tea leaves through that and was basically told to get my affairs in order and say goodbye because he just didn't know if he could save me. And he was being really honest, obviously,
Yeah.
but it was devastating news
Right.
when you think you're having, just a cold, so yeah, so I got through that and then it was a week before my 31st birthday. So in 20 I got back to work, and in 2018 they started screening me for breast cancer. And I'm just like, wow, like I've had enough. Thank you very much. And I started going in for regular screenings. And every time I went in, Stacey, they kept asking me for the same information repeatedly.
Mm.
What are your allergies? Do you have any allergies? What medications are you taking? Who's your emergency contacts? Have you had, up to date on your vaccinations? All these questions. And I'm like, wow, I have not moved in 3 weeks, and no, my medications haven't changed in 3 weeks
Right.
or my allergies, and, so I came home and I created our customized wallet cards for healthcare to address that gap because I was so frustrated and so of answering their questions.
Uh,
And they're all, thank God we have them, they're great professionals, but when you're a patient, it's so tiring.
it is. It really is.
Right? Yeah.
100%.
So I selfishly, thought, well, I'll just fix my own problem. Had this simple little idea and it
Yeah.
just blew up into this. So
I
I
love
didn't
it.
expect that. I was just trying to solve my own problem selfishly, but then I realized very quickly I wasn't the only person really frustrated and suffering with this situation. So I decided to turn it into a business. And thank God, ever since I haven't been sick. So
Uh,
I think my purpose has found me. Yeah.
I think it has. I definitely
Yeah.
think it has. And was
Yeah.
there a moment where you realized there has to be a better way?
Those were my words verbatim when I was sitting there waiting for screening. I just said, there has got to be a better way because I went to registration. They asked all of those questions. I go into the next room, I get handed a clipboard with a paper to answer all the questions
Research
again.
questions. Yeah.
And I'm like, what's going on? Like, don't you people communicate?
Yeah.
And I mean, I've used my wallet card 3 times in one appointment.
Mhm.
One appointment. So it's shocking, but their systems, the systems are communicating and they're not connected even from department to department or, provider to provider, those sorts of things. So there's a lot of challenges that
Yeah.
many systems are dealing with. And if you're out of town or out of province or out of state,
Yeah.
who's got access? Who knows right away what's gonna um
Yeah. Like, what did you see, like, missing in the healthcare system?
I think, accurate I don't wanna say accuracy, I think the gaps in no connection. There's different verticals of healthcare,
Yeah.
and there are different systems intertwined in all those different verticals, and no one can connect and communicate with anyone. But what this does is an independent platform
Yeah.
that the member, the user gets to control and update according to their medical needs as they change over time. So
Right.
it doesn't matter who they're seeing.
Yeah.
There's consistency with the information they're sharing.
Yeah.
And because they are populating it, they're not going to provide inaccurate information or something that's going to hurt them, right?
Mhm.
If they share it. So I think the consistency in being able to share from different providers or out of state or out of country or out of town
Yeah.
is huge.
I
And
agree.
yeah, so I had been in Abu Dhabi by last year for the healthcare conference.
Mhm.
I was invited over there for that, so I thought I'd go. And if anything happened to me while I was over there, my daughter has a copy of my card, right? So if I'd gone down, they could have called her
Right.
here in Canada and she could scan the QR code from Canada and she could
Mhm.
talk them through my profile
Yeah.
if they had questions. So it's very flexible. I don't have to fly somewhere to help somebody. It has huge convenience of being able to assist
Yeah.
from a different location for
Right.
family members, right?
I love that. Now, if you're listening and this is making you think about your own health information, your loved ones, or what would happen in an emergency, make sure that you follow this podcast. These conversations are conversations that help you prepare, protect yourself, and make better decisions before life forces you to. Now, let's talk about the actual emergency moment. If someone cannot speak for themselves, what kind of information do first responders and medical professionals need quickly?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is they need to know what your allergies are.
Mm.
What are your underlying conditions? If they're looking for a blood type, if you know your blood type and can share that, who are your emergency contacts? Who's
Right.
your first point of contact that they can call?
Mm.
Who can they let know what's going on?
Right.
Um, they don't know that information. And if they gave you a medication that would interact with what you already have going on,
Mm.
that will throw you into a spiral and another lane of
Yeah.
injury or health issues that you were not expecting to have to deal with.
Yeah.
So bless their hearts. I don't know how they do what they do. It's like they're walking into every situation blind.
Yes.
So I think this provides great assistance to help them,
Mhm.
help you and to speed up their work and to stop the guessing games of what's going on, right?
Now, what are the most important details people should have available?
Obviously, I think medications, obviously would be populated in there. So, the name of it, what you're taking, the dosage, the frequency, and why you're taking it. I think the
Right.
why is often overlooked because
Mhm.
you could be taking a medication, but it could be treating different ailments, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I think the reason why you're taking a certain medication is really important. I think that obviously your allergies and your underlying conditions, but your emergency contacts are important.
Mm.
Or if you have, in my case, I have previous surgeries. So I put those on my profile. Obviously, they need to know, what have you had done before? I've actually had that question and emerge before. What other surgeries have you had? So I think if you wanted to populate that, if you have family history that is important for them to know about. Maybe you don't have the issue yet, but
Yeah.
maybe it's awareness for them to look into that. If you have symptoms,
Right.
right,
Mhm.
that might be chalking up to something like that that you weren't aware of, those things are important.
Definitely important.
Yeah.
Very important. Now, what can happen when information is missing or outdated or hard to access?
I think the biggest, obviously the gap, and they don't know. So you spend a lot more time answering questions.
Yeah.
And when you have to spend that time answering questions rather than discussing solutions around
Right.
the reason you're there in the first place,
Mhm.
it's time, it's energy, it's, obviously resources for the physician.
Yeah.
Time is money. Healthcare is business and
Mhm.
time is money for them. And they have to do all this extra work to try to figure things out
Yeah.
and piece things together when you could just show them, these are the medications. Oh, okay, good to know.
Yeah.
These are the conditions. Good to know.
Right.
And they're not sitting there spending 20 minutes asking those same questions,
Mhm. That's so
right?
true. Oh, 100%.
So time, I think the time and people, do they really want to sit and, write out clipboards of information, pages of
I
information?
dread it.
That's really frustrating, right? And it's
Yeah.
all that information. So typically any information that you personally are routinely asked when you go to the doctor or if you had to go to emergency, that's the information that you want to populate because that's the problem you're trying to solve
Yeah.
is not to answer those same questions repeatedly.
Yep.
So we are all different. We all have a different medical profile. And that was a big reason for me designing the service the way I did was because we are all different. And,
Totally.
the questions they ask you, Stacey, are going to be very different than what they ask me.
Right.
So I wanted everyone to have the opportunity to complete their profile according to their medical profile in that way
Yes.
to save time.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. And you talk a lot about patient empowerment. Like, what does that really mean?
I think being able to give people control over the information they want to share instead of, I was speaking with someone a couple weeks ago and she was given medication that she told them don't give her
Mm.
because she is allergic. They didn't listen and gave it to her anyway. She ended up with a neurological disease that now is on her
Ah,
profile. So even if she went in for an ear infection or a throat infection, they see this and there could
yeah.
be a stigma or, you know, other situation around not treating her maybe fairly because of that when it was
Mhm.
completely out of her control. So she doesn't want to share that.
Right.
She's going in for a throat infection, not neurological disease or situation now, but they look
Exactly.
at everything. So I think number one, patient empowerment is giving people the tools
Mhm.
to help themselves and advocate for themselves when they
Yeah.
need to and
Mhm.
feel confident about doing that. So,
Exactly.
when you can advocate for yourself, because we will all have to do it whether we like it or not, either
Yeah.
you're doing this kind of in advance, ready to
Mhm.
go, and
Right.
only changing it as you need to, or
Mhm.
you're going in and answering the questions over and over and over. So it's basically, I always say it's kind of up to you how you want to do this.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to help you by giving you a better way.
Exactly. I love that. Now, why can't people assume the healthcare system already has everything handled?
I think because they're overwhelmed.
Mhm.
I think when you're overwhelmed and they may not be in the same going to the same facility,
Yeah,
right?
it's very true.
So that in and of itself, or a dental office, they're not going to be connected. They won't have that information.
Yeah. I definitely think our healthcare system is overwhelmed and understaffed.
They
I
are,
see it all the time, and it's pretty sad. It's really sad.
and they burn out, like they're
Oh,
tired. Right?
yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah,
I remember doing talks and going into hospitals, and the nurses were just so drained, and it was just, they were burned out. They were burned
yeah.
out. and it's sad. Now, for you, how can patients take more active role in protecting themselves and their families?
You know what? We are pleased to serve people, through this service. And, when people have any questions about the service, please reach out to me, connect with me through the websites. And, it's my911.ca for Canadians and it's my911life.com in the United States. So, there's a contact form in there. Just reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions or set up a meeting to help people and talk through anything they have, about how this functions or if there's a lot of FAQs on the site,
Yeah.
but some people just want to talk to you, right?
Right.
And they want to know more about it and um how they can implement it within
Right.
their families.
Now, you're
Yeah.
using technology to solve this problem. How is healthcare technology changing the way patients, first responders, and providers communicate?
I think, well, the systems are all different, of
Hmm.
course,
Right.
but this is self-directed. So it's a standalone, independent service that does not rely on existing service systems
Mhm.
within different organizations.
Yeah.
So people can just have it with them, and the same QR code scanner you'd scan with anything else with your camera. So it's a very standard QR code, and but there's a lot of, obviously, there has to be regulations and compliancy and or compliance and security all behind everything, of course.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
there's safeguards in place. It's highly regulated
Yeah.
in industry, obviously. And so there's always lots of, things that I think about to make sure that everything is safeguarded.
Right. And that's so
Yeah.
important. Now, what makes emergency medical communication so important right now? That's okay.
So I think it's really important right now because we do have an aging population. And I think with systems that are already challenged and overwhelmed,
Hmm.
time is of the essence. So I think for everybody, for families alike, it's going to be it's just going to be a lot more efficient
Right.
to have intercommunications with your own family members while giving yourself the privacy and the independence of being able to manage your own information, right?
Right.
And we also have, with Alzheimer's, dementia, there's a lot of conditions like that that are
Yeah.
also increasing. And how are people managing that information?
Yeah. 100%. Hmm.
I think that this is going to be a really important aspect of regular, I would say, regular daily life for people
Oh, yeah.
to make sure they're prepared because things are going to change and caregivers are overwhelmed as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Like
even
they have a big job.
they do have a very big job.
Yeah.
They have a huge job. And
Yeah.
what I was just gonna add to it is that we were talking about dementia and we were talking about Alzheimer's and, it's normal for people to get a natural form of dementia as we get older. We tend to decline a little bit, so and we slow down, with that naturally starting to our cognitive skills and other skills start to slow down, we may forget certain things or we may not, tell them exactly what they should be told. So having this is very detrimental, I think.
And it's just a more efficient way of doing it because if you do have, like I said, a sheet of paper and
Mhm.
it's ripped or, it's lost or coffee
Yeah.
spilt on it or water,
Mhm.
whatever,
Yeah.
that's a tough situation to share with family, right? Like if
Oh, yeah.
that's your only copy,
Right. Exactly.
right?
Exactly. You know, how do you see this evolving in the next few years?
I think it's going to just grow. I think people will, have situations where they're going to um, have to educate themselves
Mhm.
because family members will be aging.
Yes.
So they're going to be looking for solutions
Right.
that can help them because they have busy lives. And I think it's just going to grow.
Agree with you. Yeah, definitely. Now, this is
Yep.
especially important for families. What should parents have prepared for their children?
I think they should, if they choose to sign up and get a service like this,
Mhm.
share the solution with their kids, share it with their families, let them know. So in the event they are going out for dinner some night
Mhm.
and something happened even at the restaurant,
Right.
your kids can say, I know where just call 911. I'll just
Right.
grab my mom's card
Mhm.
and we're good to go. You know, there's tremendous peace of mind for the children
Yeah,
as
I
well.
agree.
So yeah, yeah. So I think it affects everybody differently, but when you can be prepared in advance, there's peace of mind in that.
Sure.
like for
Yeah.
everybody in the family, right?
Oh,
And
definitely.
yeah, yeah.
And what should adult children know about aging parents?
I'm going to speak personally from experience that
Mhm.
way. I think that we don't want to see our parents age,
Yeah.
but it's inevitable.
Right.
And I know that generation likes their independence.
Mm.
They have a hard time giving
Yeah.
up independence.
Yeah.
Something like this allows them to keep their independence.
Yes.
And it also gives the kids a little more peace of mind knowing, okay, if mom goes to the doctor with her card, great, but I can control the profile for her because
Yeah.
I'm her healthcare power of attorney.
Right.
So I know the information they're going to see is going to be consistent, it's going to be accurate, and
Yeah.
my mom can go in there and just show her card and be confident that she still has her,
Yeah.
the ability and autonomy to go in there alone and
Right.
not feel like she has to have a babysitter,
Yeah.
but also with the peace of mind knowing she's got the right information so they're not going to give her the wrong prescription or they're
Yes.
going to know what
Mhm.
her allergies or whatever it is could
Right.
be, right? So I think autonomy and independence and just I think there's a lot of respect around that. I think it's important.
I agree. Oh,
Mhm.
definitely. And what should caregivers keep organized?
Uh, I think they all need to be speaking to family members if
Mhm.
they are the caregiver in the family, making sure there's family meetings that need to be taking place.
Right.
So everyone's on the same page. Maybe,
Mhm.
the caregivers just need to know the solution is there for them
Right.
and that if anything changes, it needs to be updated. Let the person know who's controlling the profile.
Yeah.
Let them know so that they can make sure the information is updated and accurate. Now, we provide reminders anyway about that to make sure that the profile is being checked and accurate and current according to their particular situation. But I think it's just important for open communication between families, caregivers, and patients.
I agree. What is like one thing families often overlook?
I think they overlook the fact that I think I don't know if it's an overlooking or if it's more of an assumption.
Mm.
Again, around, nothing will happen. If it does, we'll be in control. We'll be able to handle it.
Right.
But there is a lot of confusion in those moments, and I think that's what's kind of overlooked is the fact that they could all be very confused
Yes.
when something like that happens, but
Mhm.
they don't think they will be. Now, maybe they won't be.
Right.
Not everybody gets confused or overwhelmed in those situations, but it can happen, and
Oh,
it does happen to many people.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Now you mentioned you may have a new book available soon. What
I do.
inspired you? Yeah.
Well, you know what? I kept getting asked by so many people, "When's the My 911 storybook coming? Like, when's the book coming out, Michelle?" And I never really thought much about it.
Yeah.
And after a call with, a lady in California, it was like the 6th request. I'm like, "I have to write a book. I'm
Yeah.
just going to sit and write this book." And I started it, last July thinking, I'll get it out pretty quick.
Yeah.
And that my intention was obviously and I had just information just flowing out of me at the time. It was no problem. And but then, life got busy and the business got busy. So I kind of put it to the side a little bit and I've been back at it. So it's almost done and I'm really, really excited to share it. It is the one story and my journey from how this thing started. And it goes into more detail. Obviously, it's a very vulnerable piece to write
Right. I love.
and it is very vulnerable, but I'm really proud of it, and I hope everybody can take away some positive, inspirational things from it and lessons learned through my journey to help them.
Now, what is the main message you want readers to walk away with?
Emergency preparedness is not according to your age.
Mhm.
It is needed by everyone,
Yeah.
right? Because when you prepare, when your mind is at ease, everything is in good order.
Yeah.
You know, you aren't thinking straight in moments of despair and trauma,
Yep.
and I think that just health is wealth. If we don't have our health, we have nothing.
Right.
So, I think it's so important to take care of our health
Yes.
and be part of that journey in advocating for ourselves so that we know we'll be in better shape after for it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then how does it connect to your mission of helping people become more prepared and empowered?
The emergency preparedness?
Yes.
I think just having that information ready in advance instead of waiting until the last minute or waiting until there's a traumatic event, that's empowering in and of itself
Yeah.
because You're not worried, like the anxiety and the stress and the frustration when you have those events it's really difficult,
Yeah,
like for everybody. And, if you aren't prepared and you are evacuated, I'm just going to take another situation there. What happens then?
right. Exactly.
You know,
It's so
like it's the unknown and people don't like the unknown.
no.
Most people like routine. Most people like to know what's going to happen.
Yes,
But emergencies are not, again, planned events. They are unknown.
they are unknown.
So
Yeah. I was just gonna say all I was gonna say is they usually happen when the most unexpected times when you least expect it.
when it's not convenient, right?
Yes.
And it can disrupt your entire life. Yeah, it can. It can change your life in the blink of an eye. And seriously, and it does too, because, you and I have both experienced difficult moments like that. And when you do, your whole mindset changes around that.
Oh,
You make sure everything, your estate planning, and you make sure everything is in order.
yeah.
I know
Mhm.
when my father passed away, that's the first thing I did. We got our wills done. Everything was done and put in order because it was so unexpected.
Yeah.
And it made me think of my own situation, and my daughter was 4 at the time, but I put everything in order because I just didn't know. I thought, "Wow,
Yeah.
it's a wake-up call." It really is.
It really is. Now, let's make this very practical. If someone is listening right now and they want to be more prepared, what is the first three things they should do?
Get your information organized. Organize all of it, and not just for yourself, but make it, a family project.
Yeah.
Make it an important piece on your calendar,
Hmm.
to sit down and share the importance of having things in order with your family. That way, so that, if this situation comes up, this is where, it's communication.
Yes.
I think that is number one is communication so that everyone's on the same page. Everyone knows where things are, where to look for them. Doesn't mean you have to give up your independence, like I said, but I think communication is key. Having, that informed consent. Who is my caregiver if I was in an accident and couldn't communicate or I became a quadriplegic? Who's going to make those decisions on my behalf? So I think communication is just number one. And I think that goes spirals from there.
Right.
Yeah.
What information should they gather today?
I think know what medications, you're on for
Mhm.
sure, because that is a big thing, right? The medication industry, obviously people, I think I heard on average in the United States, people are on like 7 or 8 different types of medications on average.
That's
Um,
crazy.
it's a lot,
Yeah.
right? So does the family know what that looks like? I don't think so. And it could change, right? One medication isn't working, you have to change. And so all of that information changes again. So I think that, yeah, I think that people just need to make sure that they understand what's your immediate, because I
Mhm.
think the allergies thing, I think family members typically know what other family members' allergies are, but medications they don't,
Right.
right?
I
So I think
I do too. Now, what mistakes should they stop making immediately?
assuming that everything will happen to someone else. I think I think assuming that it'll never happen to them. A
Yep.
a question I was always getting asked was, "Who's your ideal client?" Like, "Who's your ideal client?" And I said, "I know that's a very popular question to ask," but I said, "Anybody who has a heart?" Because, we all have health, and to
Yep.
me, we all bleed red, and whether, you're 23 like I was
Yep.
or, even younger, like you were, it doesn't discriminate against age.
Right.
It doesn't discriminate against, all the societal,
Mhm.
influences out there between race and gender and religion and all these different it doesn't discriminate. We all
Mhm.
have a heart body. If you were only going to get one car for your entire life,
Yeah.
would you take care of it?
Right. You would.
Right? We get
Mhm.
one body. We get one shell of, everything
Yeah.
to take care of for our whole life.
Yeah.
And so that we can live to the best of our ability, right? So it's important to take care of it.
It is.
Yeah.
100%. I think people need a wake-up call and realize how important it is.
Yeah.
And I think you put it so nicely said that, if we had one car, would we take care of it? We only have one body, and you see
Yeah.
people misusing and treating their body all the time. Let's wake up,
I know.
you know?
I know. And, of course, we all have, our own little vices of whatever that is.
Mhm.
Maybe we don't work out as much as we should. Maybe we have, an extra glass of wine here or there.
Right.
Some people smoke, some people vape, some, whatever it is.
Right.
And that's dealing with life. And that's, individual choice. But overall, I think the industry is waking up. I think populations are waking up as to
Yep.
what's going on and why it's so important to take care of our health to the best of our ability, right? We're
Yeah.
not perfect.
Mhm.
Um, but we try our very best every day. I think everyone typically does,
Yeah.
but life is busy.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, if
Yeah.
there was one thing that you want every person listening to understand about medical emergencies and preparation, what would that be?
Consistency of sharing this right information is really important
Mhm.
because it doesn't take much for problems to arise when things are not available and consistent.
Yes, I agree. That's a great
Yep.
answer. That is a great answer.
Yep.
Now, can you tell everybody about your service and your products?
Yeah, so basically, they are a customized wallet card for healthcare. The service is the same in Canada and in the United States. And what they do is they display a QR code on the back that's linked to your online emergency profile. So, important information to put right on your card, and you get to
Mhm.
choose the information that's being printed on your card. Important information is, are you a diabetic?
Yeah.
Do you have a heart condition? Do you need an EpiPen for
Mhm.
something? Do you, if you have your blood type, like my blood type is on mine, those types of things are really important so they could see it right away.
Yeah.
And then behind the QR code is obviously the medications and underlying conditions and different things. Other things that maybe they don't need to know right away, but they do need to know.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, so people register online and they go through the checkout like any other process buying online. And then they get a confirmation email, which will also provide a link to log in and start editing their profile.
Right.
So from there, an emergency profile is created for them. And then they just go through. We've made it very simple for people to go through and just complete the information that they need to share or they want to share.
Mhm.
Um, and then they review it to make sure it's accurate for them
Right.
because these are one offs, So, and they can take as long as they want. Maybe it takes them a month to get the information. Maybe it takes them 2 months before they need, to get everything in order before they send their card for printing. But when they are ready, they send their card for printing and it goes to the manufacturer and it's printed according to their custom selections. And then once that's done, it's mailed to them in a confidential envelope.
Mhm.
So when they get it, all they have to do is activate the QR code
Right.
with a click of a link on their profile and it's ready to go. And
I
that's it, they're ready to use it. But they can uncheck that as well. So if they don't want their QR code active, they can just deactivate it at any point in time as well.
I love that. Now, where
Mhm.
can people find you?
Okay, so in Canada, it's my911.ca, and in the United States, it's my911.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
For everyone out there, a medical emergency can happen in seconds. A preparation happens before that moment. And when the right information is available at the right time, it can help protect you, it can guide you, it could help care for you in the right way and give you your loved ones a peace of mind. Michelle, I have to say, I am so proud of you. You know, you took
Mhm.
something in your life and you were able to really turn it into something, so valuable. And we go through things in life, and we were talking about this before the show, and we ask ourselves, why? But you came out, you went through all this and you came out with a beautiful product that can help millions of people out there. And, you are a courageous woman who stepped out into the open and you're sharing your story and you did something about it. You took action to help others. So I just want to say thank you. I thank you for who you are. Thank you for what you're doing for others. And thank you for coming on the show and sharing your story and for creating this beautiful product.
Well, you're welcome. And Stacey, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It's been quite a journey and it is vulnerable to share. It really is. But thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
You're very welcome. I thank you so much for being on the show. I hope you'll come back and we can talk some
Yes.
more. And
Thank you. I'll let you know when the book's ready.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. You have a great day.
You as well. Cheers.